don't know how to get there. Has it really? I never heard of it. I don't know. I've been in Baltimore for 33 years. Really?
Please join me in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me on straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There is a very picturesque expression we have. It goes back many centuries. We say that there are three sounds that are scarcely audible as we go about our day-to-day lives, but these sounds have tremendous reverberations. First is the passing of a day, and the second is the rain as it falls to the ground. And the third is the soul as it leaves the body. I learned from Amy and the family that it was a short while ago when Carolyn's soul was recalled to her Maker. Swiftly, quickly, and imperceptibly, and she passed away nearly at her 76th birthday. And the waves of grief also reverberate, I'm told, over a very wide area. From here to Boston, to California, to Baltimore, to wherever her friends and family reside today, there are waves of grief. I've been given the honor of presiding at the service today, but as the family knows, I'm just your representative, your conduit. I'd like to try to put a little bit of structure and meaning to these moments. And then Carolyn's sister and dear friend, Jane, will fill in the personal details of her life. Today, in the category of those of you remembering Carolyn, of course, the members of the immediate family, Amy and Jeremy and Ross and Rona, as well as Brother Bob and Marcy, who are in Georgia, are not able to be here, along with Ross, grandchildren Zia and Tali, and others of you in the category of friends and family. Ross and Amy as children of your mom, of course, and not wishing to use that old trite woman of valor expression, I would like to instead share with you a poem that I think helps to show the way our mother's legacy resides in us. A mother in Hebrew was called My Mother, My Teacher. And the poem reads, when I was young, I heard a song I heard no other. I learned the words and I sang along. The song was my mother's. My mother never told me how to sing. She never told me why. She simply sang the songs she'd heard when she was young as I. Some of the lines were repeated and some of them were wise. They were mother's Bible and blueprint. They were mother's comfort. Some of them were even lies. I often write my own songs now, but more than now and then I find my mother's voice inside of me, singing the same songs again. We've gathered here in this chapel to remember, and I state the obvious, but I think for you as a family, this may be your first opportunity to actually sit together collectively and begin to reflect on Carolyn's whole life of 75 plus years. And not just let your pain and sadness blot out, I'm sure, wonderful memories that Jane and Rona will share with us in just a few moments. I think her biography, the facts of her life are well known. Just very briefly, she was the first child born to her parents, Alan and Eleanor, grew up in D.C. in Chevy Chase, went to Tufts University, got a degree in early childhood education, met Christopher while in college. Prior to starting a family, she worked as a kindergarten teacher, and later she became an organizer, a professional organizer. Something that I'm sure brought a lot of pleasure to a lot of people who simply can't organize their own lives together. She was very active, as Amy said, as a professional volunteer, particularly with Soviet Jewry. I learned that she traveled to the former Soviet Union just a couple years before I did, and did the same exact thing in visiting refuseniks. And apparently she continued to help them in this country and aided in their relocation, either here or in Israel. They say that when we're born, each one of us is given 3 names. The names our parents call us, the names through which our friends know us, and the names through which only God knows us, the names that really reflect who we are, away from the public eye. So I learned that Carolyn was known by these names by those whose lives she touched: high energy, passionate. These are Amy's words: deeply caring, committed to her family, not necessarily warm and fuzzy, but tireless, frenetic, woman who loved bright colors and had great taste. Jean-Paul Sartre, the philosopher, said people always die too soon or too late. But he said that whenever we do die, our lives are fully complete, and there is a line under it ready for the summing up. So I now call upon those representing the family. Sister Rona will speak first, followed by a very dear friend, Jane Green. You're welcome to take off your masks when you speak from the pulpit. Thank you.
Carolyn was a wonderful sister. We didn't always get along, but she was really a wonderful sister. I don't seem to remember a lot about our childhood, maybe because we were 6 years apart. I know we shared a room for a while, and I have to assume that we must have fought a lot, because eventually our parents split us up and moved me to a separate room. She also fought with our brother Bob. Once she kicked him in the shin, which didn't seem to hurt him at all, but she broke her big toe. Another time, she threw a bookend at his head. Fortunately, he closed the door in time, but there was a big gash in the door, and our parents did not fix that door till we were all grown up and out of the house. Not long after Carolyn got her driver's license, she got a parking ticket, and she didn't want to tell our parents about it. So she went into her piggy bank and took all of her real silver dollars, the ones that probably came from all the afikomen's and stuff over the years, and she took this 16 or some dollars, silver dollars, up to Rockville or Bethesda and paid the parking ticket and regretted it, I think, for the rest of her life. I could always go to Carolyn for advice, and she always knew the correct thing to do. Often she gave me advice even when I didn't want it, but that seems to run in our family. Carolyn was also responsible for my meeting my husband Yossi. Before Ross's bar mitzvah, the family traveled to Israel, and they met Yossi's best friend Yaakov, who is an incredible artist and silversmith. They talked, and she found out that Yossi was moving to Maryland and not married. So she called him when she returned, and she asked him if he'd like to be set up. And she had a whole long list of people that she was willing to set him up with. But my understanding is that she said something like, "You'd better start with my sister, or I'll never hear the end of it." 33 years ago, Carolyn helped me choose the carpet in our new house, taupe. It's a good thing she did, because I'm so indecisive, I would probably still be trying to figure it out to this day. As everyone knows, Carolyn was incredibly well organized. Once she went to help Ross move into his new apartment, but she had to stop in the middle because she needed to put his spices in alphabetical order, and she didn't know if he wanted crushed red pepper under C, R, or P. Another time she came to my house to try and help me clean out my mess, And we started with one kitchen cabinet. After about 15 minutes, when I wouldn't let her throw out everything that she wanted to throw out without asking me, she stormed out, and we didn't speak for several weeks. And that was the last attempt she ever made to help me organize my mess. And I wish it's a lot bigger these days. I could use you. Please, come help. Carolyn was also quite stubborn and did things the way she wanted. Amy and Ross are 3 years apart, and they almost had the same birthday. However, Carolyn told the doctors and nurses that she would not have that baby until after midnight because she would not have them on the same day. So they ended up 3 years, 3 hours, and 33 minutes apart, but they each have their own birthday. Carolyn was a terrific hostess. I remember so many wonderful seders and Thanksgivings and dinners and parties at her house. And each year for seders, she made 4 or 5 different types of haroset. It could never just be one. And every year she looked for new recipes, and eventually she found a recipe for haroset balls. I think they were Moroccan, made with peanuts and cashews, dates, figs, prunes, raisins, and lots of honey and cinnamon. And they became our family's favorite recipe, and Yossi really loved them. Normally they're about the size of ping pong balls or golf balls, but one year she made one about the size of a softball and said, "This is Yossi's ball." So, almost 40 years ago, when I returned from a year in Israel, I stayed at their house for a few days until I found a new apartment. And we didn't exactly see eye to eye then. Every time I used a sink or a shower, I had to dry it or there would be spots. And if I walked on any carpet, the carpet had to be raked or there would be footprints. Carolyn was a wonderful sister, but I was very happy to find my own apartment. Carolyn always went out of her way to take care of people, including me. It was Carolyn who made sure that I had a 40th birthday party 2 months after my eldest son Mickey was born. And it was Carolyn again who gave me a surprise 50th birthday party the day before 9/11. One of our best times together was when we traveled to the Soviet Union in 1985. We went not first, but we went to see Vilna and Kovno, where our grandfather had come from. And as well as to visit people with whom Carolyn had been corresponding for years, refuseniks. It was the only time in our lives that we got to feel like spies, and it was a marvelous trip, and luckily several of the people that we met ended up in the D.C. area and became very close friends. Around 8 years ago, Carolyn suggested we go to a cousin's bar mitzvah in Milwaukee in December. And my reaction was, "Are you crazy? Milwaukee in December?" But she talked me into it, and we had a wonderful time, and I really reconnected with all the cousins on that side of the family. And thanks to Carolyn, one of my sons, Ellie, who now lives in Chicago, has all those cousins watching out for him and nagging him and doing all those things. However, it was a bittersweet trip as well, as it was the first time that I noticed that something with Carolyn wasn't quite right. She always had an amazing sense of direction, but on that trip, as I drove us from Milwaukee to Chicago to visit our aunt, she was not able to read the map or help me navigate. And that was when I realized that the Carolyn I had known was no longer quite there. Over the last 6 years, my trips to Chico have also been bittersweet. It was wonderful to see her each time, but incredibly frustrating that I couldn't wave a magic wand to make the old Carolyn reappear. Carolyn, you were a wonderful sister. You didn't deserve an ending like this. I love you and I miss you.
I thought I was family, but not 100%, maybe 88%. I'm truly honored to have been asked by Amy and the family to pay tribute to my beloved friend Carolyn. Yes, it doesn't come loud. Having met in 1973 when we were neighbors in new houses in Gaithersburg, Carolyn, with her always outstretched arms and hugs to everyone she met, and I forged a friendship whose boundaries extended to the Jewish Federation, where beginning in 1974, I held a staff position in the women's division, and Carolyn was the founder of the Young Women's Coalition, who continued to be involved in so many noteworthy roles she took on over the years. There was no one more kind to those she approached, yet totally fearless as a fundraiser, and our work together with her remarkable organizational skills was extremely rewarding. How lucky I was to have her presence in more than one facet in my life. The Sangers approached us to ask if we would be interested in buying a condo together in Bethany. Carolyn had checked numerous places, no surprise there, and so the two of us drove down for a day to look them over. Of course, she had made a sophisticated chart comparing the good and bad parts of each. Although we didn't go there every weekend, we had a system for sharing and caring. We were both addicted to red Swedish fish candy, which we would replenish with industrial-sized packages. Of course, Carolyn, in a very short time, managed to find a huge fish-shaped glass bowl to hold our supply, which was displayed on the largest shelf for all to see. Each of us, upon leaving our stay, was responsible to fill the fish bowl for the other's arrival. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't each count the fish to make sure we each got the same number. Our families owned the place together for 18 years, a wonderful partnership of the high life in Bethany. Gracious hospitality was another of Carolyn's admirable traits. Annual Passover seders and breakfasts for large groups of family and friends. She always included my parents, which was really special. They were wonderfully communal, beautifully arranged, and of course absolutely delicious. Every event, be it personal or professional, was done with exceptional flair and warmth, as only Carolyn loved to do. She held a baby shower for me in 1981, which was extremely meaningful after our long-awaited dream of having a child miraculously was about to come true. I think Jonathan fell in love with her in utero. My memories and thoughts of our entwined lives can be ticketed off by a really long list. Carolyn would have loved to know that, especially if I used brightly colored Post-it notes while conjuring up things to mention. I think of pinks and purples and her wonderful sense of color and design. Anything but windows. What better business for Carolyn to start but as an organizer beyond compare, with her trade name evoking a bit of whimsy and the possibility that she probably would do windows if asked. Discovering that one of her closest friends was the mother of my son's best friends since they met at the beginning of 3-year-old nursery school, which continues to this day 37 years later. Her dear friend became my dear friend as well. Carolyn was the eternal kindergarten teacher whose creativity and boundless enthusiasm for her multitude of activities and projects never waned. Her devotion to the Soviet Jewry movement and her desire to help families she encountered here, both through established organizational means or personal ones, helped provide and care for as many people as she possibly could. She established friendships with several of those families along this path. Carolyn rarely said no to any project she came upon, was offered, or connections made, which led her to create others. Her focus on the Camp Journey respite program provided a year-round opportunity so parents and guardians would be able to have some much-needed time to take care of themselves, knowing that their children ages 11 to 17 would spend a few days, learn how to manage their behavior through play, and have fun in a safe environment while participating in a variety of activities. I think I lost my fourth page. No, it's in the See, Carolyn wouldn't like this. It's not organized enough. Carolyn and I shared a health concern issue. She in '87 and me the following year. We were fortunate to both have positive outcomes, and as if we weren't so closely tied to one another before, that experience bonded us together more strongly than ever. Carolyn was a dynamo, always full speed. Over the many years that we shared our friendship, I would watch and sense how important her children and grandchildren were to her. She would do anything for them and support them in their choices. With all her accomplishments, that's the one of which I felt she was the most proud. There are so many aspects of our lives together that comprised our precious friendship. I'm sure so many of you have your own special memories just as I do. When people say that someone will live in their hearts forever, I would add for myself that Carolyn will always be with me because of the experience we shared, the impact she has had on my life, and the love we had for each other. That's the legacy that I hold most dear.
Two beautiful tributes, and they were very complimentary, and I think very much those of us who didn't know Carolyn, as well as you, really brought her to light and humanized her a great deal. Thank you, Rona and Jane. A poet wrote these words: "To let go doesn't mean to stop caring. It means I can't do it for someone else. To let go is not to enable, but to allow learning from natural consequences. To let go is not to care for, but to care about. To let go is not to judge, but to allow another to be him or herself. To let go is not to be in the middle arranging all the outcomes, but to allow others to determine their own destinies. To let go is not to dominate, but to be willing to let things happen. To let go is not to betray the past, but to have faith in the future. To let go means to fear less and to love more." Let's pause for a moment of silent prayer and memory. If it's helpful, close your eyes and please conjure up an image of Carolyn as you'd like to remember her. And so when all is now said and done, the Book of Life of Carolyn Sanger is fully complete today at the age of 75, nearly 76. And may I suggest, in response to her sister and her friends' tributes and to the feelings of all of you today, and perhaps her final words to you would sound something like the lyrics of an old song. For all we know, we may never meet again. So before we go, make this moment sweet again. We won't say goodbye until the last minute. I hold out my hand, my heart is always in it. For all we know, this may only be a dream. We come, we go, like ripples in a stream. So love each other today. Tomorrow may be good for some, but tomorrow may never come, for all we know. May the memory of Carolyn Sanger, beloved sister, mother, and grandmother, relative and friend, always be for a blessing. Amen. Please rise for the Hebrew memorial prayer. In this prayer, I will refer to Carolyn by her Hebrew name of Chaya Devora, but Avi Moshe, Belzar Zelda. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamrumim, Hamatzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utahorim Kezohar Akia Mazirim, Nishmat Haisha Chaya Devora Bat Avi Moshe V'Zelda Shalcha Li'olama B'Gan Eden Tehi Menucha Tana Bala Rachamim Asti Reha B'Seiter Knafecha Li'olamim Utzror B'Tzror HaChayim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'Tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'Nomar Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, Grant perfect peace now in your presence. To the soul of Chai Devora, Bat Avimoshe Zelda, Carolyn, Wolpe Sanger, who has gone to her eternal home. Master of Mercy, we beseech you, remember all that was good in Carolyn's life. In this way, as we say, her soul will be bound up in the bond of life. God is her portion, and may she rest in peace. Amen. Amen. Interment will take place following this service downtown at Azrael Cemetery, but it is a private service for family only. However, family will be sitting Shiva at the Bethesda Marriott, 4 and 7 p.m. on Monday. That's tomorrow between 4 and 7 p.m. And a Zoom Shiva Wednesday, December 8th from 7 to 9 p.m. The link to that Zoom Shiva will be posted at a later time.
This now concludes the service from the funeral home. Those of you friends who have not signed the guest register, please do so on your way out. You can either do it in the back of the chapel or going out this door. There's 2 books. At this time, I'd like to ask the pallbearers to please step forward.
El Malay Rachamim Shochen Bamrumim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utahorim Kezohar Akia Mazirim Nishmat Haisha Chai Devora Bat Avimoshe V'Zelda Shalcha Li'olama B'Gan Eden Tehi Menucha Tana Bala Rachamim Aski Reha B'Seiter Kenafecha Li'olamim Utzror bitzror hachayim and nishmata Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace now in your presence. To the soul of Chai Devora, Bat Avimoshe V'Zelda, Carolyn, Wolpe Sanger, who has gone to her eternal home. Master of Mercy, we beseech you, remember all that was good in Carolyn's life. In this way, as we say, her soul will be bound up in the bond of life. God is her portion, and may she rest in peace. Amen. Amen.